Covered in medals, the once legendary god of war was now kneeling on the ground in humiliation, humbly begging this family for forgiveness, all because they wanted to send his daughter, who had been in a fight, to a correctional facility for education. In order to prevent his daughter's life from being scarred with sorrow and shame, Old Kim chose to silently endure this humiliation. His daughter, standing beside him, felt deeply wronged watching her father so cowardly. Clearly, the other side had started the fight first, yet in the end, it was her father who apologized. The more she thought about it, the angrier she became, and finally she cried out, "If you don't have the ability, then don't have children," and stormed off. But what she didn't know was that this cowardly father before her had once, 20 years ago, been the underground emperor ruling the gangs, with just a single glance able to decide another's life or death. Unfortunately, Old Kim was a slave to his daughter's love. In order to ensure his soon-to-be-born child had a safe environment to grow up in, he decided to withdraw from the underworld and no longer meddle in worldly affairs. To make all his enemies around him disappear, he risked his life by breaking into the military, where he met the highest military commander of Chu and forced him to eliminate all underground forces in a single night. In the end, Old Kim's wish came true, the gangs of the entire city were dismantled overnight, and Old Kim also fulfilled his desire to become nothing more than a devoted father in the Gu family. Old Kim originally thought such peaceful, steady days would last forever, but he never expected what happened next. Soon this cowardly man, together with his old comrades, would be forced to return to the underworld once again. That day, Old Kim prepared a meal, waiting for his daughter to come home and eat with him. But no matter how long he waited, she didn't show up, and eventually he dozed off by accident. When he opened his eyes again, it was already 2 a.m., yet his daughter still hadn't come back. Realizing something was wrong, Old Kim immediately went out into the streets to search for her whereabouts. He saw a group of people gathered together whispering and went forward to check, only to find a purple necklace on the ground. He remembered it belonged to the blonde girl who had fought with his daughter. He quickly made a call to ask if she was with his daughter, but as soon as the line connected, the other party hung up. Old Kim's face instantly darkened, sensing guilt on the other side. Relying on his years of experience as the underground emperor, Old Kim quickly tracked down the blonde girl. Just as he was about to question her about his daughter's whereabouts, a chubby boy nearby panicked, thinking their crime was about to be exposed, and tried to silence him. Old Kim immediately took off his coat, revealing a body full of knife scars, and with a single elbow strike, he knocked the chubby boy out of the fight. He then grabbed the hemp rope and wrapped it tightly around the boy's neck, roaring as he demanded to know where his daughter was. Crying in pain, the chubby boy confessed the scene of her abduction. It turned out that just a day earlier, his daughter Min had once again gone to confront the blonde girl. As the saying goes, enemies meet with fiery eyes, so the two fought again. During the fight, the blonde girl lost control and smashed a rock into Min's face, causing her to bleed heavily and faint. Thinking she had killed her, the blonde girl feared going to prison, so she called her well-connected father, asking him to find someone to cover it up. 2.5 hours later, a man in his 40s arrived, stuffed Min into the trunk, and then drove away with several others. After learning the whole story, Old Kim immediately arrived at a courtyard. When no one responded after he rang the bell several times, he kicked the door down and rushed in. The thugs nearby, hearing the commotion, raised their baseball bats and swung at the door, but Old Kim dodged with ease. Without hesitation, he countered with a fierce blow, and then unleashed a flurry of punches onto Curly Hair, quickly subduing the entire group in just moments. Old Kim questioned Little Black on how they usually contacted their superiors, but Little Black pretended ignorance, claiming he didn't know. Seeing him refuse to cooperate, Old Kim kicked him hard in the face, but Little Black still refused to give in. Old Kim then bent down, pulled a black pistol from the toolbox, and shot him in the thigh. Little Black let out a heart-wrenching scream, but soon after lost all signs of life, collapsing into a pool of blood. After dealing with Little Black, Old Kim bent down and picked up his phone, only to find in the messages that his daughter was already declared dead. At that moment it was as if Old Kim had aged 10 years. His hands trembled as he slowly put the phone down, tears of despair streaming down his face. For a father, this was the hardest truth to bear. But since he hadn't seen his daughter's body, Old Kim refused to give up searching. As the saying goes, alive or dead, one must see the person or the corpse. Even if she was truly gone, he would find her and give her a proper burial. After adjusting his state of mind, Old Kim immediately dialed the number again. At the same time, a buzz-cut man's phone suddenly rang. Looking at the caller ID, he realized it was from one of his underlings. The blonde girl next to him told him not to answer, suspecting it was the police, because Little Black always sent a message before calling. Hearing this reminder, the buzz-cut man instantly blocked the number, deleted all chat records, and to be safe, even threw his phone away. Seeing he had been blocked, Old Kim felt devastated, and told Little Black to call them instead. Little Black said the other side had blocked him, and now he had no way to get in touch. Seeing this, Old Kim immediately grabbed Little Black by the neck. "I don't care, get that call through right now, or I'll strangle you to death." One of the accomplices, seeing this, quickly picked up a fruit knife from the ground and stabbed into Old Kim's back. Little Black praised Curly Hair for doing well, urging him to stab again and kill him. Unexpectedly, Old Kim stood up as if nothing had happened. Old Kim snatched the fruit knife from Curly Hair's hand, and just as he was about to strike Little Black, the police suddenly burst in with guns raised. Since Old Kim was holding a knife, they mistook him for the suspect and arrested him. They handcuffed him and took him back to the station. Curly Hair, seeing Old Kim restrained, immediately had an idea. He kicked Old Kim to the ground and then stomped on his face over and over. But Old Kim didn't resist, silently enduring, numb with the unbearable grief of losing his daughter. After dozens of kicks, even the police couldn't watch anymore, and they dragged Curly Hair into a holding cell. Supported by the officers, Old Kim slowly stood again. At that moment, his phone suddenly rang. A nearby officer picked it up and saw the contact name, "My daughter." Learning it was his daughter calling, Old Kim's face turned deadly serious. Like a demon descending, he broke free of the cuffs in an instant and took down all the officers in the room. He grabbed the phone, only to find the caller had already hung up. Holding it tightly, Old Kim swore silently in his heart that those who hurt his daughter would pay a terrible price. Afterward, Old Kim went to a taekwondo gym, because there he had a friend skilled in computer tracking. Old Kim wanted this friend to help locate his daughter. Old Jin noticed Old Kim's arrival, dismissed the children for a 5-minute break, and sat beside him. "Old friend, long time no see." Old Kim lowered his head in sorrow. "My daughter is dead." Old Chen's eyes widened. "What did you say?" Old Kim showed him the phone. "I'm not sure if it's true." At the station, Min called, but before I could say a word, the line went dead. Old Kim pleaded with his old friend to help locate her. Old Chen agreed without hesitation. But he was puzzled. Why didn't Old Kim throw the phone away after injuring people? Since his fingerprints were left at the station, his tracks would surely be exposed. Old Kim explained that he was afraid of missing his daughter's call, so he kept it. Because of that, his fingerprints were quickly picked up by the Special Operations Bureau of Country H, led personally by the director. Not only did they find Old Kim's location, they also tracked down Min's. Soon they arrived at the taekwondo gym. At that moment, the director held a child ready to go home and said he wanted to play a game. Seeing this, Old Chen suddenly kicked him in the face, but the director grabbed his foot. "Taekwondo, huh? Interesting. But if I catch your foot, what will you do?" Old Chen didn't answer, instead striking with another kick that landed squarely on the director's face. He then crouched down, gently patted the child's forehead, and told him to go home early and not wander outside. But the director rose again and swung a punch at Old Chen, only for Old Kim to catch it barehanded. Taking the chance, Old Chen kicked the director in the face once more. Then the two fought their way out together. Old Kim asked Old Chen what was needed to find his daughter's location. Old Chen said all he needed was a car. With Old Chen's help, Old Kim successfully pinpointed his daughter's whereabouts. They quickly followed the signal and arrived at the location, only to discover it was a high school. Ergo asked in confusion why they had come here, but Old Kim ignored him and walked straight inside. Feeling insulted, Ergo grabbed Old Kim's shoulder, only for Old Kim to throw him over with a shoulder flip and stomp his chest down firmly. Then, like a god of slaughter from hell, Old Kim cut down all the punks around him and went alone to the second floor. He kicked open the meeting room door, storming in like death itself. At first, the thugs thought it was the police, but seeing only Old Kim, they sighed in relief and asked what he was doing there. Old Kim ignored them, staring straight ahead at Rose Man, because the phone in Rose Man's pocket was Min's. In a flash, Old Kim appeared before him, eyes locked on him, demanding to know how he got that phone. Rose Man smiled slyly, saying he didn't know. Old Kim grabbed him by the hair and punched his face into a swollen mess, asking again where the phone came from. Beaten nearly to tears, Rose Man finally told the truth. He had found the phone while collecting scrap, and while playing with it, he noticed the girl on the screen was pretty. Wanting to zoom in, he accidentally opened the call log and was shocked to see the word "Dad" written over and over. He hadn't expected the contact list to hold only "Dad." Driven by curiosity, he dialed, but quickly hung up to avoid trouble. Hearing this, Old Kim froze in place. He never imagined his daughter's contact list had only "Dad," meaning she had no friends at all. In despair, Old Kim scrolled through her friend list, finally finding a girl named Huelin, whom he remembered as his daughter's closest friend, often mentioned at home. But opening the chat, Old Kim was stunned. From the messages, it didn't look like friendship at all. Huelin only asked to borrow money, treating his daughter as an errand runner. Since Min had grown up without a mother, she craved affection. Anyone willing to be her friend, she would give her heart to. Huelin exploited this, using the name of friendship to treat Min like a servant. Thinking of how his daughter suffered from a lack of love. He was used by others, which made Old Kim extremely angry. What was even more pathetic was that his daughter suffered so much, yet as her father, he had no idea. At this moment Old Kim felt endless regret, wondering why he hadn't realized it earlier and let his daughter endure so much humiliation. Old Jin tightly held Old Kim's hand, telling him to stay strong. Now was not the time for regret, the urgent task was to quickly find Emily, only after finding her could he properly apologize. Hearing his comrade's comfort, Old Kim pulled himself together again, asking Rose Guy where he collected the junk and how he got the phone. Under Old Kim's threats, Rose Guy gave him the address where he found the phone. Old Kim then brought his comrade to the place Rose Guy mentioned, where a drunken man was sitting. Old Kim asked the drunk if he remembered the phone, saying he had heard he sold it for a bottle of soju. The drunk, seeing the phone, readily admitted it was him who sold it, asking if there was a problem. Old Kim's face instantly turned grim, saying this phone belonged to his daughter, accusing the drunk of theft, and insisting on taking him to the police station for questioning. The drunk hurriedly shook his head, claiming he didn't steal it, he had found it on the road. He then recounted in detail how he picked up the phone yesterday. That day, like usual, he was leaning against a power pole sleeping, when he saw two men in black whispering nearby. Later, a man with a buzz cut wearing an office jacket threw a black plastic bag into a trash can. Driven by curiosity, the drunk went over and opened the bag, finding a phone inside, which excited him. As he held the phone, suddenly a group of thugs surrounded him. After some negotiation, the drunk agreed to sell the phone for a bottle of soju. Hearing this, Old Kim's veins bulged with fury, demanding the drunk tell him the license plate of the two men in black within 5 minutes, or he'd regret ever being born. Realizing he was in deep trouble, the drunk tried hard to recall the scene, but all he remembered was that they were driving a white sedan, nothing else. Old Kim wanted to press further, but Old Jin told him to stop, as the guy probably knew nothing more and forcing him would bring no useful clues. With the white sedan clue, it was enough to track their hideout. With his comrade's help, Old Kim immediately launched a full search on the white sedan, not even sparing the drunk's facial features. After relentless effort, Old Kim finally found the white sedan the drunk described and pinpointed its current location. Just as Old Kim was preparing to go with Old Jin to the destination, a car suddenly rammed into them. Old Jin braked and turned the wheel quickly, but they still couldn't avoid flipping over. At that moment, the director jumped out of his car and slowly walked toward Old Kim. Old Kim wanted to fight him to the death, complaining this guy was always on their tail, annoying him, and he planned to kill him first. Old Jin quickly stopped him, reminding him the man was a government officer, and killing him would cause chaos and bigger trouble, and saving his daughter was more important. He volunteered to stall the director while Old Kim escaped by jumping into the river to save his daughter. Though reluctant, Old Kim agreed for his daughter's sake, deciding to split up. When the smoke cleared, Old Jin crawled out from under the car, raised his hands pretending to pass by. The director, knowing he was Old Kim's partner, asked where Old Kim was, but before he finished, a huge explosion went off behind Old Jin. Using the flames as cover, Old Kim ran to the riverside and jumped in with determination, removing his glasses and taking a deep breath to swim across. The director pointed a gun at Old Chen's head, demanding Old Kim's whereabouts, but Old Chen kicked him away, saying the thing he hated most was someone pointing a gun at him. Furious, the director raised his gun and fired, but agile Old Chen dodged every bullet. Just then, the director's men drove up. Seeing things turn bad, Old Chen slipped behind the director, kicked the gun from his hand, but the director pulled out a dagger, knowing his men would soon arrive. Realizing this, Old Chen kicked him away, then lunged forward, locking him in a tight grip, dragging him into the river with him. Meanwhile, Old Kim had already swum ashore, successfully finding the white sedan's location. Following the trail of blood, he reached an abandoned warehouse, where he saw a man in black sitting inside a car, the same man who had taken his daughter's phone. Enraged, Old Kim punched the windshield and ordered him to get out. Jack, seeing Old Kim's fury, refused to leave the car. Old Kim then grabbed a wire and forced the lock open with a loud snap. At that moment Old Kim radiated killing intent like a demon, demanding Jack tell him where his daughter was. Jack, terrified as if facing the Grim Reaper, confessed everything about Emily. He revealed that a day earlier, they had taken Emily to the riverside, where Timmy ordered the gang to stuff her into a sack and throw her into a freezer. So Emily should now be in the freezer. Just as Old Kim was about to ask for the freezer's exact location, a man in black suddenly struck him on the back with a steel pipe. But Old Kim, hardened like steel, wasn't hurt at all. He immediately counterattacked, punching the ambusher. Jack, seizing the chaos, escaped the car, shoving aside a truck driver eating a burger and hijacking the truck. From the mirror, he saw Old Kim chasing relentlessly through the rain, his aged body battered but his speed only growing faster. For his daughter's sake, he could do anything. In the next moment, Old Kim leapt and kicked toward the cab. Jack, blinded by Old Kim's attack, lost control and drove into the sea. At the critical moment, Old Kim dragged Jack out of the sinking truck, warning him not to think of escaping. Even if he fled to the ends of the earth, he would still be caught. He demanded Jack reveal where the freezer was so he could save his daughter. Meanwhile, Emily woke from unconsciousness, checking her surroundings to find herself in a freezer. She pushed the door with all her strength, but it wouldn't open. She screamed desperately for help, but no one answered. Hunger, cold, and helplessness overwhelmed her, suffocating her spirit. Just as she was about to despair, she heard the lock turning. Seeing the familiar figure, she thought it was her father, and tears of relief welled up as she prepared to embrace him, but the voice shattered her hope. It wasn't her father, it was Timmy, the one who had tied her up and thrown her into the car. Timmy had just been wandering the warehouse out of boredom, but then a man suddenly rushed out. He shoved Tammy aside, cursing non-stop, yelling, "President Zhu, how dare you mess with me, do you want to die?" Tammy upon hearing this immediately pulled a dagger from her chest and stabbed toward the man's heart while speaking. In the end the man collapsed lifelessly into a pool of blood. During their struggle Tammy's phone also accidentally fell down. Simon saw the caller ID on the screen and noticed the 3 words President Zhu. He remembered that the blonde girl he had fought before also had the surname Zhu. Could it be that the reason he was locked inside the freezer had something to do with that blonde girl? But before he could fully figure everything out, Tammy slowly bent down and picked up the phone. Simon quickly covered his mouth and nose tightly, not daring to make a single sound, regardless of how he was brought into the freezer. Now that he had witnessed a murder from start to finish, even if he was innocent, he had already become a witness. The killer would never let him leave alive. Just as Tammy picked up the phone, President Zhu called again. Tammy pressed the speaker without hesitation and answered. President Zhu said, well Tammy, what business do I have with you? Actually it's not a big deal, just that my daughter recently got into some trouble. She killed her classmate Simon. How is the aftermath I told you to handle? Tammy listened with disdain and said, you mean that the person has already been thrown into the freezer? Later I'll find a place to secretly dispose of her. President Zhu nodded in satisfaction and said, good job. tomorrow you'll get a raise." Tammy's face darkened instantly and she said, "Don't ever talk to me in that tone again. The evidence of your daughter's murder is with me. If you don't want her to go to prison, then prepare 1 billion tomorrow and bring it to the freezer. Otherwise I'll hand over the evidence to the police." Saying this, Tammy angrily hung up. Simon looked at Tammy's fading figure and let out a long sigh of relief. As soon as Tammy stepped out of the warehouse, heavy rain began pouring down. He brushed the dust off his clothes and was about to return inside to avoid the rain when through the crack he saw a pair of eyes staring right at him. Simon, upon realizing Tammy had discovered him, immediately closed the door and locked it. Tammy pounded desperately outside, urging Simon to open up. Simon quickly covered his ears, pretending not to hear anything. When Tammy saw it was useless, he sighed deeply and said, "Then let's wait each other out. Let's see who lasts longer. Inside the freezer is so cold I doubt you can hold on for long." At this moment Simon was shivering violently from the freezing temperature. Looking at his stiff hands, he breathed out a long sigh, saying, "Dad, where are you? If only Dad was here now." After about 10 minutes of deadlock, Tammy suddenly spoke again. "Little one, why not open the door and talk to Uncle? Uncle will let you go. We've never even met. I have no reason to hurt you." Simon lowered his head, silently crying, and said, "Stop lying. I saw you kill someone with my own eyes. The moment I get out you'll kill me too." Tammy smiled coldly upon hearing this, then slowly pulled a dagger from her chest again and said, "Little girl, before you reminded me I really intended to let you go. After all, killing is just routine for me. If you had pretended not to know, you could have lived safely." Simon, terrified, curled up tighter, sensing deep fear from Tammy's threat. Just as Tammy was about to force the door open, unexpectedly he saw Jack running toward him from a distance. Puzzled, Tammy asked, "Jack, what happened to you? Why is your face beaten like that, and why didn't you answer my calls?" Jack was about to explain when suddenly Tammy stabbed him in the stomach. With a thud, Jack collapsed miserably to the ground. Tammy said, "So you didn't answer the calls? Could it be you colluded with President Zhu, planning to kill me together? Too bad I saw through your scheme. You won't have the chance now." Jack struggled to get up and said, "No, it's not like that. The reason I didn't answer was all because of that guy behind me." At that moment Old Jin radiated endless killing intent like a grim reaper from hell, terrifying and overwhelming. Old Jin demanded Tammy to tell him where his daughter Simon was. Tammy looked confused, saying he didn't know who Simon was. Without hesitation Old Jin swung his fist at Tammy. Tammy, realizing the hostility, instantly shouted, "Son!" The next second a teenager in camouflage appeared, blocking in front of Tammy. The boy, named Harry, had no parents since childhood, later adopted by Tammy as a godson. Tammy always raised Harry as a killer. Tammy ordered Harry to show no mercy and beat the man to death, saying this person was probably sent by President Zhu to silence them. "If you fail the mission, don't come back." Harry nodded, saying he would definitely complete it. Soon Old Jin and Harry clashed. After a few exchanges, Old Jin subdued Harry, knocking him to the ground before quickly heading toward the warehouse. Whether his daughter was alive or not, he had to find Simon. Even if only a corpse, he must take her back intact. Unexpectedly the fallen Harry rose again like a beast, charging at Old Jin with lightning speed. Old Jin once again blasted him away with a punch, saying, "If my daughter is still alive, anyone who dares block me from saving her I would have killed without hesitation, but sadly she's likely already dead." With that Old Jin shed sorrowful tears. Harry howled in despair, saying, "If I can't kill you, my father will kill me, so no matter what, today I must kill you." Seeing this, Old Jin immediately lifted Harry up and said, "The owner of this phone was thrown into the freezer. The only reason I came here is to retrieve my daughter's body.